I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee of March 22nd, 2022 at 5:04 p.m. Approval of minutes, draft minutes of March 8th, 2022 Finance Committee meeting.
I move approval.
Approval made by Alder Gerhardt and discussion. Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. We'll move on to public appearances, non-agenda items. I don't believe we have any registered speakers. No, nothing on Zoom. No one on Zoom. Thank you. Moving on to item 4, Finance Director Report. Misty, you have the floor.
Thank you. So big news, of course, is that we finished the audit. So we had our exit conference this afternoon. Overall, it went very well. We're expecting a clean opinion, and we're expecting them to be at the May 24th Finance Committee meeting to do their annual audit presentation. So I will send out a revised December Treasurer's Report to all of you guys so you can see the internal numbers. As long as you recognize there still might be nuances between that, how we report in that report and how it shows up in the final audit report. But the numbers in total should be the same. They're just categorized a little bit differently. So I'll work to pull that together for you guys, though probably not for the next meeting because I'm out for spring break starting tomorrow. So it'll be the meeting after that. Okay. But overall, it went really well. Big kudos to the team at Fitchburg, the finance team especially, who was running around doing a lot of cleanup stuff to make sure everything was documented and perfect and ready to go. But then also all the other departments, in particular Public Works, who had to drop a lot of things out of a hat to answer questions last week while they were here. So I really appreciate the teamwork that we get from everybody here. The ARPA investment plan is hopefully getting approved tonight. We have our first report that we have to file by April 30th. That I will make sure to file, and I'll share with this committee when it's done as well. I was on a somewhat frustrating webinar yesterday learning about the reporting that we have to do, and we asked, when can we see the report that we have to fill out, and they said, hopefully in the next few weeks. So, you know how Misty likes tight deadlines like that, so we'll have to see how that goes. But in total, in 2021, we spent just over $10,000 of that money on things like sanitizer and masks and IT equipment, things like that. So those are the few costs that will be showing up in this April report. Some bad news, especially for you, Gabriella. So remember that hybrid truck that we authorized at the last meeting. Turns out they are no longer taking orders for that truck. So we had to cancel that order, and then we're doing a pre-approval now administratively because it's less than $25,000 to purchase a traditional gas-powered one. Would love to say that we would wait until the hybrids are available again, but staff's very nervous about even the length of time to get the gas-powered one, so felt that we needed to move forward. We'll definitely keep it on the radar for future purchases. And then the last, random update I wanted to share is I think I've shared in the past that we don't have the chips for the radios with the water meters. So we still have water meters in all of our new homes and new buildings that are being constructed, but there aren't radios on them because we don't have chips for them. And so that means that the meters have to be manually read rather than the automatic metering system that we have. So we have 110 meters out there already that don't have radios, and we're hopeful we can get radios in the next few months, but as we've seen with everything, that's probably a lofty goal. So kudos to the utility department that's been going out and doing manual readings, and then also partnership with the building inspecting department. They have been taking pictures of those for us too as they've been out and about. So just another great example of the teamwork that we're doing to try to get things done in very unusual circumstances. That's all I have.
Very good. Welcome, Jim. Moving on to the review of bills. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay, thank you. Misty, just so the hybrid truck and then also the chips, that's supply chain issues, right? Okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to double check that there wasn't something else that's happening in the world. Okay.
Nope, supply chain.
Of course, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. We will move on to the item 5 of the agenda, the review of bills. 5A, detailed review of checks for $10,000 and above for the period of March 1st through the 15th, 2022, totaling $160,625.68. Are there questions or discussion from the committee? Hearing none, we will move on to 5B, detailed review of all checks issued. Checks 123-230 through 123-262 for the period of March 1st through the 15th, 2022, totaling $202,769.09. Questions from the committee? Hearing none, we will move on to item 5C, detailed review of P-card transactions for $10,000 and above, the cycle ending February 7th, 2022. Total dollars, $90,767.52. Questions from the committee? Hearing none, we will move on to item 5D, review of P-card transactions for the cycle ending February 7th, 2022. Total, $246,846.73. Questions? Hearing none, we will move on to action item 6A. Do I have a motion to move ordinance 2022-0-09, updating Fitchburg ordinances to allow use of insurance in lieu of bonds for city officers by amending sections 8 through 7, 8 through 105F, 8 through 106A, 8 through 113C, and 18 through 3, and 18 through 8.
I move approval.
Motion to approve made by Alder Gerhart. Misty, would you like to speak to this first item?
Yes, please. So 2017, the legislature changed the rules so that we had two options for our municipal officials, which includes things like the judge, the city treasurer, the city clerk, etc. In the past, you had to have a separate bond in order to cover those positions. They changed it so you were allowed to have an insurance policy instead. The insurance policy is part of our already existing crime policy, so the city back then elected to do that instead of the bonds. But went down a bit of a rabbit hole recently and realized the ordinances were not updated to allow that. So I consider this to be a bit of a housekeeping item to clarify what we're doing, which is in compliance with statute, but just matching it up with the ordinances.
So we're just cleaning it up at this point.
Yep. The alternative, of course, is we could require bonds for all of those positions instead, but that would be an additional cost.
Okay. Questions from the committee? Hearing none, I'll place it to a vote. Those in favor of the resolution before us signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries. Moving on to action item 6B. Motion to approve ordinance 2022-0-10, amending sections 4 through 127.3, Finance Committee functions, and sections 8 through 113B4, Treasurer duties.
I move approval.
Approval made by Alder Wheeler. And Misty, would you like to speak to this item as well, please?
Yeah, this is another one of those, I guess, housekeeping cleanup items. So what we are doing is in compliance with statute. I think that's important to lay out there first. But the ordinances conflict in one area in particular. So the Finance Committee functions section of the ordinances says ultimately that the Finance Committee should be reviewing the checks before I send them out. Where right now we're reviewing them after the fact, again, in compliance with statute and really in compliance with the purchasing policy that we have later on in the ordinances. So it's just a cleanup of a different section there to just be clear again that you guys are reviewing these bills after they've already been paid. And then the second thing while we were in there, we noticed too that the audit is under current ordinance required to be done by April 15th, which is far too early if you ask me. We just did the actual audit. We still have to go through the reporting process. There is a way through the ordinance for me to get an exception from you guys or an extension in order to do it later, but I'll have to do that every year. So I thought it would be easier to change that deadline. I'm requesting it be July 15th. Reason for that is that the report is due to the state August 1st. So that's our way to make sure that we're meeting that required deadline. And then from our, I guess, practice perspective, we always shoot for the second meeting in May for them to give the audit presentation. Sometimes it moves back to the first meeting in June, but if things are really not going as smoothly as we hoped, we'd like to have a little cushion there too, as long as we're in compliance with the state reporting guidelines.
Very good. Again, it's another housekeeping. We're not out of compliance, it's just that we're updating the ordinances to the process that we follow.
Exactly.
Okay, very good.
Got a question for
Yes,
Misty?
Alder Wheeler.
Misty, how did this come to light?
So the Finance Committee won, so when the question was asked about moving the Finance Committee bills from the Finance Committee to the consent agenda, that's how we started looking at it a little bit further and realized that that one was not as clear. And then while we were looking at that section, I looked at this other section as well and saw this item too. This treasurer duties also is where the bond that we changed in the last ordinance change, that's where that one's located as well. So kind of two things got us to that suggestion.
I commend you and your staff for taking care of this.
Baby steps.
Additional discussion. Alder Gerhart, go ahead.
Thanks. Just want to also say the memo was very helpful, so thanks for laying that out. Makes it a lot easier to follow.
Excellent.
No additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll place the motion before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it, motion carries. We will move on to the next action item of 6C. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R-19-22, approving the purchase of 2 single-axle plow truck chassis?
I move approval.
Approval made by Alder Gerhart. And Misty, you'll speak to this item?
Yes, I will.
Very good.
So this is another pre-approval. This is based off of state bid, so we know we're getting a good price. It is for 2 single-axle plow truck chassis. The equipment will be done via a separate pre-approval because that goes through a different vendor. There is 2. One of them is a replacement of one that we already have, and the other one is for the town of Madison and for the other development up in that area that was budgeted. So both of them are pretty straightforward purchases.
Okay. Questions from the committee? Questions, discussion? Seeing none, we'll place it to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it, motion carries. Moving on to the next action item, 6D. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R-20-22, authorizing the purchase of a 2022 street sweeper?
I move approval.
Motion to approve made by Alder Wheeler. Misty, you have the floor.
So this is another purchase. So this is a street sweeper in the stormwater utility. Last year, the year before, we bought an additional street sweeper. This one is now the replacement of the old one. So this is a little bit different where we want to use the same vendor as the other one that we purchased recently. There's a lot of operating efficiencies having 2 pieces of equipment that are the same provider and the same models. That'll make it much easier from a maintenance perspective. But overall, it's within the net budget.
Very good. Questions from the committee or discussion? Alder Gerhart.
Thanks. I'm curious. I guess I feel like I have never noted, or I've never flagged in my mind the difference between the net budget and the budget. Is that something we typically do, or is this just a big enough difference that we had to specifically point it out?
Yep, so this one's a big enough difference. So usually the purchase would come in under the actual budget, but this one we're using additional sale proceeds that we're expecting to help pay for the additional expense that we're going to do it. This is also a little unique because it's in the utilities, so their accounting is a little bit different. So that's why it's more drawn out here.
And we don't expect that the sale price would be any less than $45,000. We're pretty confident about that?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
All right, very good. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll place the motion before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it, motion carries. Moving on to the next action item of 6E. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R-27-22, approving Addendum Number 2 and Addendum Number 3 to the master agreement to provide consulting services between the City of Fitchburg and H&A Advisors, LLC, for the Workforce Housing Endowment Program for a Fitchburg rent-to-own Townhome Project.
I move approval.
Approval, motion by Alder Gerhart. And Misty, are you going to speak? And then,
I'm actually going to kick this one off to Mike Harrigan. He's here from H&A Advisors and has a pretty brief presentation for you guys to talk about this next phase.
very good. Go ahead, Mike. It is Mike, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, committee members. I see Mike Zimmerman is also live with us as well. I don't know, Mike, did you want to say anything before I start?
Finance Committee, this is just the next step in our rent-to-own housing program. It's actually looking at now specific sites where we could do a program of the parameters that you and the council approved late last year. So we're excited to start with the next phase of this analysis, and Mike will take you through that scope of work today.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Tonight I've prepared a two-page PowerPoint document that I'd like to share. If I can get the sharing going here. Okay. So what I'm showing you on this slide is a breakdown of our engagement proposal. For those of you that would like to follow this with more detail in terms of the specifics, you can find it on your committee packet on page 104 through 106. But what we're proposing is the proceeding with the implementation phase of this. We delivered our feasibility report, which was adopted by the council last October. And we laid out a number of these things in it. We would suggest starting with the site selection because we think that is so important. It will help further refine an understanding of what the actual cost will be. It would be germane to that particular location. And so this scope envisions the evaluation of up to 4 locations within the city to be determined by the city and its staff. And then we would evaluate the economics of each of those 4 alternative locations. The next step would be engaging in discussions with the development partners that had been identified in our report. In the report, there were 11 public and 7 private potential partners that were identified that could potentially provide some financial support. This came up as a result of our survey that we had done. This engagement contemplates us contacting 10 of those public and private entities to determine whether or not it's possible to have their commitment to financial participation. On the next phase of development financing, that involves the matter of raising the capital for the upfront construction of the project. And that would be a combination of tax increment dollars and potentially borrowed funds, as well as participation from the development partners. That would be a step that would require close coordination with the city staff, particularly the finance director, and potentially the financial advisor to the city. We also had done preliminary discussions with 3 of the local banks that had expressed interest in this, including Park Bank, Oak Bank, and the Bank of Cross Plains that have both an interest in the upfront as well as the takeout finance at some point. So that would be the development financing phase. One thing I will say that as part of our process here, and I will touch on this with regard, I'm getting a little ahead here, to the updates to the development model. But we see that ongoing throughout this, there's going to be the need to continually do some updating. Because as we know, even though it's only been 4 months since we finished our report, there's been a lot of movement, both in terms of costs as well as in the interest rate environment. And so as that target continues to move, we will continue to update. And our report did contemplate various testing scenarios. We have not yet exceeded some of those, but as we push forward, we may be getting close. We do expect to assist the city in selection of a builder and a management company for the project. We would expect to do that through an RFP process. We've already talked with a number of the entities that we would like to include in that process. And so we've identified that as a specific element, a significant part of it. The project approval would come in terms of us providing an updated feasibility report to the council and to CEDA, as well as the Housing Advisory. And that would come once we have pulled together the other steps that I've identified. And then finally, the documentation here is the legal documentation, which we would expect to coordinate with the city attorney as well as potentially an outside attorney. As part of our own diligence and conceiving of this program, we had conversations with 2 law firms in Milwaukee that had done the vetting on our concept. We will share all of that with the city attorney, and then if there's additional help that would be needed, we would expect to be involved as needed with that. We tried to break this down into segments so that if at any step along the way and the feasibility comes into question and you want to pause the project, you would have the ability to do that without incurring additional costs as we go. And so with that, I will pause, Mr. Chairman, and see if there are questions on this addendum 2.
Questions from the committee? Just one, just for clarification purposes from me. The addendum 2, the implementation of the project, we're looking at the $35,000, correct, from all of these line items?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, just want to make sure, and so that the residents of Fitchburg are aware of it as well. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You may proceed. We have no other questions at this point.
Okay, well then the second element is the addendum 3 piece. This was something that was not formally included as a recommendation in our final report, but it was identified as an option that at least one of the members of the council, as well as a member of the, I believe it was the Housing Advisory Committee, wanted to have considered potentially as an alternative approach to the land ownership portion of this concept and this process. It would involve a land trust, and it would require that the land be owned in perpetuity by the trust rather than conveyed to each subsequent owner. This is something that has been pioneered by the Madison Area Community Land Trust. They would certainly be one of the resources that we would be looking to gain further information about this. There had been some concerns raised by some of the banks about this because of the limitations that might put on value. And so we will want to revisit that along with appraisers to assess what the impact of that would be. But there's a third resource that we have access to, which is a Minneapolis entity, a nonprofit that my partner Steve Affelbacher has had a good deal of contact with, and that's the Common Bond Organization that has used this approach. So we would, if we are approved to examine this, we would look at that and then issue a feasibility impact analysis of the use of the land trust as an alternative to the form of land ownership as part of the overall financing plan's design. So this is an option for you as well. The cost of this would be $6,000.
Very good. Any questions from the committee? Discussion? Okay, seeing none. Go ahead, Mike.
So with that, if the council would subsequently approve this evening, our intent would be to start moving forward. We know that the tax increment dollars that would be critical to this project may not be completely available till sometime in the fall, but we believe that the work here that we would be undertaking, we could get a lot of things done ahead of that, so that once those dollars do become available, we would be in a position to hopefully hit the deck running and begin to move toward aggressive implementation toward the end of the year and into 2023. We do think it would be important to at least examine the possibility of once a site is identified, to possibly tying up that site. But that's a discussion we would have with everyone once we move forward. That's all I have formally, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Before we vote, or are there any additional questions for Mike? Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Mike. Mike
Yeah,
Zimmerman.
Mike Z here.
Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to just mention, if you might have seen in the packet, there was a recommendation that came with the Housing Advisory Committee to maybe amend the resolution. So I just wanted to call your attention to that. You can, make your decision based on your deliberations and everything. But they had some language in there that we should first focus on completing addendum 2 of the scope of work. And then upon completion of that and demonstrating that there is a viable business and financial model, then there would be future consideration be given to that addendum 3 work element there. So I just wanted to, I didn't know if you saw that in the packet, but just bring that to your attention, that was a recommendation from the Housing Advisory Committee.
So for clarification purposes, we're not voting on both addendums this evening unless we act upon it.
Right. Yeah. Right now they're both included, in the resolution as
Yes.
it's written, unless that would be amended, and maybe that's best left, at the council level there, who would ultimately make the call on that. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention that was in the packet.
Okay. Suggestions, Misty?
So procedurally, so right now, Gabriella, it's your amendment or your motion to approve. So right now it's to approve as presented. However, if you wanted to, you could change it to be as recommended by, was it the Housing Committee?
Yes, it was the
Mike?
Housing Advisory Committee.
Or you could leave it as is.
I'm inclined to leave it as is. I personally like investigating the land trust option, and I don't. It's it seems like a reasonable amount of money to explore that. So that's my personal opinion, but I'm interested to hear what and I know it looks like Jim Cita decided to go forward as is. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think we're all in agreement. I'm going to agree with Alder Gerhart and Wheeler. I think it is cleaner. It's not a huge dollar amount, and I think we should move as presented.
So that is what's on the floor now.
Okay, very good. So since it's on the floor, though I may.
You're welcome to vote.
All right. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Again, thank you, Mike, and Mike Zimmerman as well.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Moving on to the next item, action item, which is 6F. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R-38-22, approving contract for tree clearing and grubbing associated with the West Lacey Road reconstruction?
I move approval.
Motion to approve made by Alder Wheeler. Misty, would you speak to this item as well?
Yes, please. So the pre-approval is included in the packet, so you can see the bids that were received. You may remember we looked at something similar. We had bid it out before. We actually rejected all of those bids. Staff felt that the language was a little vague, which might have been why it came in so much higher. So we have subsequently rebid it. We got 2 bids. We do have a recommendation for you guys to consider. The goal is to get this work done before the brown bat mating season. So that's why it's on a relatively tight timeline.
And the contractor is aware of the brown bat mating season, that this must be completed prior.
Correct. That was included in the bid documents.
Okay. Yes, Alder Gerhart.
Just want to note a couple of things we talked about in transition transit from Andrew McFadden. It was under the estimate for the engineer as opposed to last time. And then they have not done tree grubbing for a previous road project, but they have worked with Parks Department before. So this vendor is known to the city, and the Parks Department, they have a good track record with parks. So I thought that would be interesting for you to know.
Additional discussion? Hearing none, we'll place the motion before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries. Moving on to the next item, action item, which is 6G. Motion to approve Resolution R-39-22, approving the construction contract with Wisconsin Department of Transportation for County Trunk Highway MM and McCoy Road intersection improvements.
I move approval.
Approval made by Alder Gerhart. Misty, you're
Yeah.
speaking to this item as well.
I will. So this project is at County Highway MM and McCoy. So it would reconstruct the intersection and then also add a traffic signal. This is a joint project between the state, the county, and us. The bulk of the project would be paid for by the state, and they do a lot of the coordinating, including the bid letting. So at this point, we have the state has issued the bids. The low bid is coming forward, and then this pre-approval would authorize the city's share of the local share. So the federal will pay the bulk of it, then the county will pay a piece of the non-federal share, and then we will pay the difference.
Very good. Discussion? Hearing none. I'll place the motion before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. The ayes have it, motion carries. Moving on to the next item, action item 6H. Motion to approve Resolution R-40-22, approving the relocation order and TPP related to reconstruction of the Lacey Road and Seminole Highway intersection.
I move approval.
Approval made by Alder Wheeler. Misty.
So this is similar to ones we've done for other projects recently, but this one is for the intersection of Lacey Road and Seminole Highway. So this TPP identifies the small pieces of land that the city will need to acquire in order to complete the project. The hope, of course, is we will be able to negotiate a sale price. However, this resolution does authorize eminent domain in case it's necessary. So again, we're hopeful that we don't have to proceed with that path. And it is within budget at this point, though obviously that is all unknown.
Sure. Very good. Questions, discussion? Seeing none, we will vote. Those in favor signify by, with the motion on the floor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it, motion carries. Next action item, 6I. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R-41-22, amending the 2022 General Fund and Water Utility Fund budgets, sign on bonuses for summer seasonal positions? Tongue twister.
I move approval as amended by personnel.
I have a motion to approve made by Alder Gerhart. And Misty, are you speaking to this then, as well as the amendment, or?
I'm actually going to let Sarah Olson, the HR manager, kind of kick this one off, and
Very
then we can address questions as they come.
Very good. Sarah, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. This is on, right? Okay, very good. So this is a $500 sign-on bonus that we're looking to add for all public works maintenance workers. These are seasonal positions, our recreation seasonal positions. There's about 12 positions total. So the issue here is we're having a hard time recruiting for our summer seasonals. We're not getting a lot of applicants. So it's a short-term solution as we look to update the pay schedule for 2023. So $250 they would receive halfway through the season, another $250 at the end of the season. So the goal would be to update all our job postings that we have out there right now where we're not getting a lot of interest and add that sign-on bonus. And we're hoping that will attract more applicants. The funding for that, we were going to utilize the ICI or the disability benefit premiums that are waived that we've been on a premium holiday for. We were going to use that for paying for the sign-on bonuses, but for recreation staff, one of the concepts was to increase the recreation fees to help pay for the sign-on bonuses for recreation staff. During personnel, they did not want to go that route. Rather, they asked for staff to go back and look for another means to pay for those sign-on bonuses for recreation staff instead of increasing the recreation program fees. So we went back. I went back to Misty, and we've been talking with Scott and Chad and trying to look at other ways that we can fund that. We do have a vacant maintenance worker position that we've had posted that we haven't filled yet. That may be an opportunity, but I don't want to speak to that yet because I think Misty might have some ideas or thoughts related to that concept.
Yeah, so the theory of recreation programs is that, at least in my view of it from a finance perspective, is that if the costs to offer the program are increasing, then the cost to participate in the program should increase the same. And I understand Personnel Committee or concern, which I assume is that the raising the fees can be difficult for the participants to adjust. But I would like to point out that there is a really healthy scholarship fund available through the Recreation Department. So if there are participants that are struggling to pay for any fees in the Recreation Department, we encourage them to apply for those scholarships. We actually haven't been using that as much, frankly, as I would hope. So I hope that we can get the word out a little bit more about those scholarships being available. And then that would help mitigate that small increase that we're suggesting. The other, I guess, concern I have is so budget amendments do need to be very specific. So committee would have to authorize the specific budget amendment if there is. However, if it is an expense to an expense, we might be able to do something different there. So at this point, we might need to work together to figure out exactly what that resolution language should say. If you do want to do something different than what was proposed by staff and what in the original resolution, but I think a conversation should probably happen first before we talk about the logistics.
So we'll open it up for discussion then. Go ahead, Alder Wheeler.
What is the age group you're recruiting for these positions?
Yep, so they can be under 18. So, as long as they have a work permit, they can be 15, 16 years old for some of these recreation positions. In the maintenance worker realm in streets and parks, they have to be 18 because they're operating the heavy machinery. But they're minors that we can employ.
Okay, and how much is the pay?
The pay is pretty low. We're going down to as much as I think it's like $9.50 per hour for some of our program assistants. The maintenance workers $12.75 per hour. I mean, it's all well under $15 an hour.
Okay, and this question's for you, Misty. Can ARPA funding be used for this?
So yes, because ARPA funding can be used for anything once we take that standard allowance. But I believe there's a bit of a time issue here where Sarah wants to be able to recruit these positions hopefully tomorrow. And that ARPA funding, we're approving the investment plan tonight, but it's far from the last stage in the process. So yes, but not now. I'd also like to point out, if I may, that this is really intended to be a short-term solution. Sarah intends to look at that LT schedule in total for the 2023 budget, and you'll probably see some recommended increases overall so that this sign-on bonus strategy won't be needed in the future.
Yeah, that $9 is kind of low when fast food restaurants are offering a few dollars more.
So with that $9 an hour or whatever, the sign-up bonuses would jump it up, make it more attractive for applicants.
That's the goal. That's the hope.
And instead of raising the fees, the scholarship program could pay for the difference. Is that my understanding?
So the in my view, we would increase the fees to cover the additional cost. And if the hurdle is the inaffordability of the participants, then we would encourage them to do the scholarship program, which would make them not have to pay any of the fees,
Sure.
not just that increase.
Okay. And is it difficult to obtain the scholarship? I mean, is there,
I don't believe so.
okay, we haven't made it difficult, I'm hoping, yeah, okay.
You know what, I'm not overly familiar with that process, but I can't imagine that it's very difficult.
And there's significant dollars in that fund?
There was about $18,000 available as of the end of the year.
Okay. Alder Gerhart.
I just wanted to summarize the personnel discussion since I sit on that committee as well. So just to clarify, the packet was updated, but the one you downloaded may have been the older version, but the amendment basically added, in addition to raising the future rec prices, the rec program prices, it says, or money is found elsewhere in the parks and public works budgets as determined by city staff. So it gives the option to do either or, to see if they can have the ability to find the money elsewhere. The reason why we were resistant to the recreation increase is because, number one, my understanding is that some programs have already been paid, so we're not equally increasing the revenue across all different sports. It's gonna be uneven for certain sports that are later in the year and some sports that are more recent, and programs, sorry, not just sports, but programs. The other thing is that it has not gone before Parks Commission, so there was no discussion about how the fee should be raised and that type of, that type of analysis that I think the Parks Commission should have that type of say in. And then also just, there's not gonna be an opportunity to kind of do that analysis of how much to raise it for permanently. And we just thought for the short-term solution of it being just the bonus, it would be valuable to have the staff have the option to use other funding sources rather than have the only option be to increase the rec fees. So that's the purpose behind the amendment.
So if I may, from a logistics perspective, if you want to provide that flexibility, I would say let's approve it as it is with the budget amendment as it is. Because if you're taking from one expense to another expense, we could do that administratively and not have to go through council. But if we want to increase the fees for it, that would have to go through council because you're using a revenue to pay for an expense, if that makes sense. So keeping that other language in there as a whereas clause, but not changing the actual budget amendment language.
Is that not what it currently is? I'm sorry, I just.
Go ahead, yeah.
Is that not how the amendment is currently written? Because I thought the amendment is kind of farther up in one of the whereas clause and not in the, I guess I'm just understand. Yeah,
Yep, so if we keep it that way, we are fine.
Okay.
I thought that the intention was to do a separate budget amendment or a different budget amendment rather than providing both as an option. So
Okay.
I think we're both on the same page, just in different directions.
Great.
And I'm not looking at the amendment. So what is really before us, though, is the amended version.
Yep, so what's before you now, if you approve it as amended by Personnel Committee, you would ultimately tell staff that they have the authority to either increase the fees to pay for it, which is what's included in the actual budget amendment that will be posted and published, or if staff's able to find a different expense source for it within the same confines, we could do a separate budget amendment administratively to take that approach, and it won't have to come back to council for it.
Okay. So then, for me to state what we have is those in favor of, with the resolution before us as amended, signify by saying aye. It can be as simple as that.
It can be, yes. Yep, and then I guess just to clarify, so you guys are then authorizing the availability of these $500 sign-on bonuses so that Sarah could post these positions tomorrow, and then staff will work together to figure out how to take care of the rec fees one.
Okay. Is there further discussion? Alder Gerhart.
Just for clarity, I pulled up the amended resolution, so you can see exactly, and then Misty can also take a look and make sure that looks okay.
Yep, so you're not changing the actual budget amendment because you're in kind of the background part of it. So the budget amendment will still reflect that we're increasing the fees. But if we choose to do something different, we have administrative authority to take care of that.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Those in favor of the motion the resolution, motion before us amended by the Personnel Committee, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries. All right, very good. We will move on to, thank you, Sarah. We will move on to action items 6J. I believe that's where we're at. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R-56-22, 2022 through 2023 salt purchase? This is a direct referral.
I move approval.
Motion for approval made by Alder Wheeler. And Misty, are you speaking to this one as well?
I am. This is one of those that you see every year. The state does a bid for road salt. You know, in the winter, we put down the salt to help keep the roads clear. The state does a bid for it. They obviously purchase significantly more than what we do, so we would love to be able to tack on to their bid. It's the way that we could get the best prices. This is a direct referral, however, because timing is a bit of an issue. So the state needs to know, I think actually they already had to know that we wanted to join the bid, but want to make sure that we get your guys' approval too. So this is the way to get the best price for the city on something that we definitely need.
Yeah. Questions, discussion from the committee? Hearing none. Those in favor with the motion before us signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it, motion carries. Moving on to action item 6K. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R-62-22, approval for Police Department portable mobile radio upgrade, direct referral?
I move approval.
Approval made by Alder Gerhart. And I see Chief Morales here. Misty, are you going to speak and then kick it off? Or?
Yeah, why don't I take this one, and he can talk about the cars if he wants to. If you don't mind, I'll talk about both this one and the fire radios, which is a couple resolutions from now at the same time. You probably remember you already approved this purchase at our last meeting. There was a bit of a hang-up where the purchase that you authorized was payment to Baycom. On the police side, the purchase actually needs to be made to Motorola. And on the fire side, it needs to be split. Part of it paid to Motorola, part of it paid to Baycom, especially because these are such large dollar amounts. In consultation between me and the city attorney, we thought it best to bring it back forward to you guys since we're changing slightly what you guys authorized. So really see it as a housekeeping item, which is why we did it as a direct referral. Same equipment, same overall dollar amount, it's just a different vendor.
With the same cost savings, because there was a significant dollar savings.
Yep, everything else is the same. It's just who I'm going to cut the check to.
Yep, very good. Discussion. Alder Gerhart.
Thanks. The structure of the resolution just confused me because it kind of sounds like I don't see any language about rescinding the former amendment and passing this one as a replacement, because it sounds like we're allocating another $700,000 for the thing that we approved a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So can you explain functionally how that works?
Yep, that's a fantastic point. And the city attorney brought that up as well after it was all processed. So that would have been a better way to do it, to add another clause that we are rescinding that prior resolution. But because the language is on the referral page, and because in the accounting system where we have the actual pre-approval and the purchase order, we have it noted and actually removed already, we felt we were confident we could make sure that we didn't pay for it twice. So that would have been a better way to do it, but we didn't.
Should we amend it to add that just for good measure, or?
It doesn't hurt anything. Yep. So now therefore, or be it further resolved.
I guess I'm just trying to find which one it was.
How about be it further resolved by the Fitchburg Common Council that it terminates the authorization of the radio purchase resolution, blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah.
Our 2922, I believe is what it was.
There were two of them, so we'll do the same thing for the other one.
So I move to amend to add, be it further resolved to, that this rescinds the former resolutions, R2922 and R3022. Or, massage that to make it make sense.
Rescind. Yep. So be it further resolved by the Fitchburg Common Council that it rescinds the former resolution authorizing this purchase under R 2922.
Okay. Additional discussion. Those in favor of the motion before us as amended,
Nope,
Nope.
vote on the amendment first.
the amendment first, okay. Those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it, the amendment carries. Then, now I can vote on the resolution.
Exactly.
Those in favor of the resolution before us signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The ayes have it, motion carries. All right, moving on to, make sure I have my lining up here. 6I. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R-63-22, purchase of police department vehicles? And this is a direct referral.
I move approval.
Approval made by Alder Wheeler.
This one's yours.
Chief, you're going to speak to this item? You have the floor.
Yes, sir. This is a product of supply and demand changes that occurred during COVID. There is, in the auto industry, there is a big backup in delivery and orders of autos. As far as the purchases for these autos, it's through the Ford dealership. And Ford had contacted us 2 weeks ago that they will not be taking orders for new vehicles by the end of this month, which is why it became a direct referral. They are just that backed up, and that's the auto industry, from shipping supplies to chips. What we've been seeing on the local news and national news is that's just the backup. And we're lucky, even if by making the orders, that we're going to get them anytime soon. This is several months behind. I purchased a vehicle that took me the greater part of 5 months to receive. So we can look at that as kind of like a ballpark figure when we will be getting them.
Very good. Questions, discussion from the committee? Alder Gerhart.
So because this was in the 2022 CIP, we were going to do this later in the year. We're just doing this earlier because we have to order now in order to get them later.
Exactly. So usually it's done closer to the fall timeline, but we're doing it much earlier. And then we were planning to do it earlier anyways, and then this happened, which is why it's a direct referral now.
Okay. Are we pretty confident that this window won't close on us as well?
We're not.
Not, yeah. Okay. Very good. Any further discussion?
And I just take it that they're probably going to deal with their customers who are paying full price for vehicles
Correct.
instead of those who are paying a lot less money.
Correct. Yes.
Good point.
All right, if there's no more questions, those in favor of the motion before us signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next action item, which is 6M. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R-68-22, approvals for fire department portable mobile radio upgrades? This is a direct referral as well.
I move approval, and then I will subsequently move to amend it to add the language to rescind the former resolution.
Very good. Alder Gerhart, motion approval along with the to amend. Misty, would you like to speak to this again, just in?
Nope, it's the same thing, but we are doing
Yep.
it again as the vote on the amendment first and then vote on the resolution as amended.
All right. Just for procedural, I'll ask if there's any additional discussion. Hearing none, so we'll vote on the amendment first. Those in favor of the amendment outlined, presented by Alder Gerhart, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The amendment the ayes have it, the amendment carries. And then we'll vote on the resolution before us as well. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Moving on, we have no further action items. So we will move to item 7, announcements. The next Finance Committee meeting will take place April 12th, 2022. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn made by Alder Wheeler. Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. We are adjourned at 5:59 PM.